My mom once said I was too dramatic. She said that after throwing a plate at my head during dinner. But last month, I found something worse than silence, worse than shouting. A voice note on WhatsApp, where she said, and I quote, "He should have been stillborn." The file was 2 years old. But the sting? Right on time. My name's Mason. I'm 32, live in Pittsburgh, and I've spent most of my adult life thinking maybe, just maybe, my family would come around. That they'd stop blaming me for being too sensitive, too cold, or too much. Mom always told people I was the difficult one. She said it so often, I started to believe it. Until that message proved she didn't just struggle to love me. She resented I ever existed. And what hurt most wasn't the words. It's how easily she said them, like ordering takeout. So if you think some parents don't deserve to be called family, stick around. Thanksgiving at my parents' house always felt like attending a play where everyone knew their lines, except me. The table was set like a catalog spread, white plates with gold trim, name cards in cursive, cranberry sauce in a crystal bowl no one actually liked. I sat between my Uncle Ray and my cousin Jenna. Mom had placed me there intentionally, far enough from the adults' end of the table, close enough to monitor. Ray poured himself a third glass of wine and looked straight at me. "So, Mason, still figuring things out?" I smiled politely. "Actually, doing all right. Got a contract editing gig for a nonprofit." He snorted. Translation: unemployed with email access. Laughter rippled around the table. Mom didn't defend me. She just passed the mashed potatoes and said, "He's always been creative." Another laugh. Even Jenna chuckled. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just the odd one out. I was the designated punchline. The running joke with a seat at the table. I stirred my plate with my fork, nodding like it was all fine. Like my chest didn't feel like it was filling with wet concrete. Then someone brought up my brother, the golden child. "Connor just closed on that house in Charlotte, right?" Mom beamed. 4 bedrooms. And he got a raise at the firm. He's just solid. I kept chewing. Slowly. My mom didn't even glance at me. Nobody asked how I was doing. Nobody cared that I was even there. I was the family artifact, tolerated, dusted off for holidays, then boxed back up. I thought about saying something, calling it out, but I knew how it would go. They'd say I was too sensitive, that I can't take a joke. Same script, same ending. So I did what I always do. I smiled. I passed the gravy, and I started planning my exit, not just from dinner, from all of it. The day after Thanksgiving, I stopped by my parents' place to grab leftovers. That was the excuse. What I really wanted was to ask, calmly, if last night was as cruel as it felt. Mom was folding napkins in the dining room, humming some hymn under her breath. "Can I ask you something?" I said. She didn't look up. "Of course, sweetheart." I hesitated. "Why did you let them talk about me like that?" She glanced at me, then back to the napkins. "What do you mean?" "At dinner. Uncle Ray. The unemployed with email joke. You just let them laugh." She finally stopped folding. "Mason, come on. You know he was joking." "Yeah, but it wasn't funny. It's not the first time either." She sighed, deeply, like I had just dropped a pile of bricks in her lap. "You always do this," she said. "Do what?" "Make everything about you. Pick at things. Create problems where there aren't any." My jaw tightened. "I'm not creating anything. I'm telling you it hurt." She crossed her arms. "You're 32, Mason. You should know how to let things go." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so familiar. Letting things go. That's your answer to everything. "I don't want to fight," she said, her voice rising slightly. "You're always so combative." "I'm not fighting. I'm asking for acknowledgement." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing like I was a puzzle she'd already grown tired of solving. "You know," she said softly, "sometimes I think you want to be miserable. It's like you need to feel attacked. Otherwise, who are you without that drama?" That one hit like a sucker punch. I felt something crack, just under the surface of my skin, like a frozen lake starting to split. "I don't want drama," I said quietly. "I want respect. I want to feel like I belong in this family." "You do belong," she said, voice suddenly syrupy. "You just take things so personally. Always have." I nodded slowly. That line, "always have," it was her favorite weapon. The phrase that made everything I felt seem like a character flaw. She stepped forward and touched my arm. "I love you, Mason. But you've got to stop looking for reasons to be wounded. Life's too short." And just like that, I was the problem again. The spoiled one. The overthinker. The storm in the teacup. I took the leftovers and left. Cold turkey. Cold truth. 2 days after the gaslight incident, I got a message from my cousin Jenna. Hey, just wanted to say I saw how they talked to you. It wasn't okay. I stared at the screen for a while. Jenna, the same cousin who laughed at Ray's joke? You deserve better. You're not crazy, Mason. It was validating. Strange, warm. Like someone had finally passed me a glass of water after years of being told thirst was imaginary. We kept texting. Not often, but enough. She told me Uncle Ray had always been a bully. That mom had a way of making people feel small without raising her voice. I didn't disagree. Then one night she wrote, "You know, your mom said something really harsh after you left." I stared, then typed, "Like what?" "Something about how you've always been too much since the day you were born." I felt that in my stomach. I called Jenna immediately. She picked up, sounding hesitant. "She said that?" I asked. "Yeah," she sighed. "And worse. But I didn't want to upset you." "Tell me." There was a pause. She said, "If I'd known what kind of son he'd grow up to be, I wouldn't have carried him to term." Silence. I didn't breathe. The room felt smaller, the ceiling lower. "She said that in front of Grandma and Ray?" I asked. "Just me and her. In the kitchen. I was helping with dishes." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice in my head, imagining the exact way she would have said it. Calm. Controlled. Like a diagnosis. But something didn't sit right. Jenna had always been friendly, but never this involved. And then I remembered the Thanksgiving table. Her laughter. Her silence. So I did something I'd never done. I called my grandmother. "Hey, Gran. Weird question. Did Mom say anything about me after I left?" She hesitated. "Your mother?" "No. Just said you were sensitive as always." That was her code. Her nice way of saying, "Yes, she trashed you." But then she added, "Though I did overhear Jenna say you were milking the victim thing." I froze. "What?" "She was talking to your mom in the garage." Thought I couldn't hear. And just like that, the warm glass of water cracked in my hand. Validation turned sour. False ally. False comfort. Same old story, different disguise. So I started wondering, if this is how they talk about me when I'm not in the room, what else have they said? What else have they hidden? And then I remembered. The old family group chat. The one they thought I'd left. I hadn't. Not really. The family group chat had been silent for months, at least from my end. They assumed I left after last year's Christmas fight. I didn't. I just muted it and changed the settings so I wouldn't show up as online. It became my private window. A feed of how people behave when they think the target's gone. Most of it was boring. Forwarded memes, church reminders, blurry photos of casserole. But then, one Thursday night, a voice message popped up. From Mom. 15 seconds long. I sat up in bed, heart already racing. "I'm just saying, don't expect him to change. He's always been dramatic. Even when he was a baby. Crying for no reason, like the world owed him something. If I'm honest, some days I wish he'd never made it past the incubator." I didn't move. Just stared at the screen. Then played it again. Incubator. She said it so casually. Like it was trivia. I remembered the story. How I was born premature. How she always made it sound like she fought for me. Stayed in the NICU every day. Sang lullabies over wires and plastic domes. Now it sounded more like a regret than a sacrifice. I didn't cry. Not then. I just felt hollow. Like someone had scooped something out of me without permission. I saved the audio. And then I sent it to myself. Just in case. Then again, to a backup drive. Then again, to a secret folder on an old laptop. Redundancy? Paranoia? Maybe. But I trusted these people once. And they used that trust like a rug to yank. The next day, I tested the waters. I texted Mom. "Hey, do you ever think about when I was born?" She replied 5 minutes later. "Of course I do. Those were the scariest days of my life. I thank God every day that you made it." I stared at the screen, then at the file. And for the first time in my life, I realized. She wasn't two-faced. She was many-faced. Each mask tailored to who she was talking to. But now I had something she couldn't twist. A voice. Her voice. Unfiltered. So I made a plan. No confrontation. Not yet. First, I wanted to hear more. If one message slipped through, what else was buried in that chat? And what would happen if I forced her to listen to herself? I found the letter while digging through a shoebox of old school stuff. Report cards. Crayon drawings. A Father's Day card I'd made for my mom when I was 6, because Dad had already left. And then, folded between 2 art projects, was a pale blue envelope. Faded, but familiar. Her handwriting. To Mason, on your 10th birthday. You won't read this yet, but one day you will. I never had. I sat on the floor and opened it. Sweetheart, you are the bravest boy I know. You came into this world fighting, and every day since, you've amazed me. I know sometimes it feels like I'm tough on you, but it's only because I want you to grow strong enough to handle life. You have a soft heart, Mason, and this world can be hard. Don't ever let that heart disappear. I read it twice, then 3 times. Was that her? Or a version she wanted to exist? I remembered being 10. I remembered how she said that same year that I needed thicker skin when I cried after a classmate called me a mistake. How she told me, no one likes a boy who sulks. But this letter, it was warmth, hope, intention. So what happened? Where did that mother go? Or was she never really there? Was it all performance? A costume for milestones, a script for birthdays? I started looking at other things. Photos of us at the zoo. She's smiling wide, holding my hand. But I remembered that day. I'd spilled lemonade on the car seat, and she'd slapped my leg so hard I limped. Another picture. Christmas. Me holding a toy robot, beaming. I remembered how I got that robot. Because I didn't eat dinner for 3 days before it. Because I knew that if I stayed quiet and invisible, the gift would appear. The pattern was clear now. Kindness, when seen. Punishment, when private. Apologies, never. And I realized something awful. The mother I wanted to defend? She only existed in memories I edited. In the way I retold stories to survive them. So I stopped editing. I listened again to the voice message. And this time, I didn't flinch. Then I opened the family group chat again. And hit play on another recording I hadn't noticed before. This time, it wasn't just her. It was her and my aunt. Laughing. He always wanted to be special. That's what makes it funny. He thinks he's the only one who's ever been hurt. They were talking about me. Like I was a punchline. And just like that, the letter lost its glow. I wasn't the brave boy anymore. I was just the burden who lived. It took me 3 hours to write the message. And 12 years of silence to start it. I didn't plan to send it. Not yet. But I needed to get it out of my body. Before it burned a hole in me. You don't get to rewrite me anymore. That was the first line. Then came the avalanche. You say I was dramatic. You say I cried for attention. You call it sensitivity, like it's a flaw. But do you remember why I cried? I listed it all. The time she locked me out of the house for being 5 minutes late. The silent weeks when I got a B instead of an A. The birthday party she forgot. And blamed me for not reminding her. The Christmas when she gave my cousin my gift, by mistake. The bruise she said was from me tripping. You were so good at making me doubt myself. You'd twist things until I apologized for your outbursts. Until I felt guilty for needing you. You told me I was lucky you didn't leave. But I was the one who stayed. I was the one who kept showing up, hoping you'd be different. I sat back. Read it again. It wasn't just anger. It was grief. For the boy who tried so hard to earn love. For the teenager who swallowed his voice to keep peace. For the man I became. Careful, quiet, braced for impact. There were no insults in the message. No swears. Just truth. And that's what made it so heavy. Because once you speak it, you can't unspeak it. And I wasn't ready for the reply she might send. Or worse, the silence. I copied the whole message and pasted it into a note. Then deleted the chat. Again. Because it wasn't about her anymore. It was about me finally hearing myself. The next morning, I opened my inbox. A new email. Subject line. Hope you're well, Mason. From her. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't open it. Not yet. I just listened, again, to the voice message. The one where she said I should have stayed in the incubator. Then I clicked compose. But this time, I didn't write to her. I wrote to myself. You didn't deserve that. You never did. And you're allowed to stop performing for people who never clapped. I didn't answer the email. But she showed up anyway. Sunday afternoon. I was in sweatpants, folding laundry, when someone knocked. I checked the peephole. It was her. Same haircut. Same perfume. The same look she wore at every school meeting. Like she was already bored, already right. I didn't open the door. Not at first. She knocked again. Softly this time. Just want to talk, Mason. I opened it halfway. Didn't invite her in. She smiled. That thin, practiced smile. The one that made teachers trust her. Made neighbors say, she's so put together. I know things got distorted, she began. Distorted. Not wrong. Not cruel. Not abusive. Someone sent me that recording, she said. I don't know how you got it, but it was out of context. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't speak. She continued. You know how I am. I say things I don't mean when I'm upset. That was a joke? I asked. She hesitated. A bad one, she offered. I was venting. You know how family can push your buttons. I laughed. It slipped out. Short, bitter. Yeah, I said. You've pushed mine for decades. She stiffened. The smile twitched. Well, she exhaled, I just came to say I'm sorry if you felt hurt. If. The golden word of non-apologies. I let silence stretch between us. She shifted her weight. I mean, I did everything alone, Mason. Your father left. I worked. I sacrificed. You think I didn't make mistakes? Now it was a monologue. About her pain. Her struggle. Her intention. I just want to move on, she said finally. To rebuild. Rebuild. Like this was a house fire. Not a demolition. She started with a match and a lie. I took a deep breath. Did you mean it? I asked. She blinked. What? The voice message. He should have stayed in the NICU. You said it twice. Her mouth opened, then closed. And that's when I saw it. The flicker. Not guilt. Resentment. Because I hadn't let it slide. Because I made her face it. You always had a flair for drama, she whispered. Just like your father. That was it. I closed the door. Didn't slam it. Didn't scream. Just closed it. Calmly. Let her words hang in the air behind me like the scent of her perfume. I stood in my hallway, heart steady. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a son begging to be loved. I felt like a man, finally done begging. I didn't block her. Not out of mercy. Out of clarity. I just didn't want another message. Another explanation. Another attempt to erase what I lived. Instead, I wrote a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter. On paper. Folded once. No envelope. Just her name on the outside. I drove to her place. Waited until her porch light turned off. And left it there, like a gravestone. It read, I've decided not to yell. Not to accuse. Not to explain. You already know what you said. You already know what it meant. And you already know you won't say sorry unless you're cornered. I used to beg for love like it was a discount I had to earn. But I'm not that child anymore. You've taught me a lot. Mostly by showing me what love doesn't look like. So thank you. Thank you for the silence. The manipulation. The backhanded compliments. They sharpen me. I used to think I was broken because I couldn't make you proud. Now I know. Pride isn't real when it's conditional. And love without warmth is just control. I wish you peace. But from far away. No love, Mason. No signature. Just a final breath, in ink. 2 weeks passed. She didn't respond. Not even a passive-aggressive voicemail. No, I got your letter. No, how dare you. Only silence. And for once, it didn't feel like punishment. It felt like proof. That she read it. Understood it. And knew. There was nothing left to twist. I started sleeping better. Dreams stopped feeling like courtrooms. And in the quiet that followed, I learned something strange. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or applause. It just settles. Like dust. Like truth. Last week, I passed by a playground. The kind with peeling paint and a tire swing. A little boy was arguing with his mom about leaving. She knelt down, smiled, and said, You don't have to be perfect. You just have to try. I had to sit on a bench. Because I realized. I'd never heard that sentence in my life. I'm 31 now. I live in a smaller place. Plants on the windowsill. A used coffee table I refinished myself. No framed degrees. No forced family photos. But there's peace. The kind you don't post. The kind that doesn't need proof. My mom hasn't reached out again. Maybe she's embarrassed. Maybe she's angry. Maybe, and this is the one I can't quite believe, she's changed. But I don't need to know. That's the difference. Before, I lived for the next apology. The next, I didn't mean it. The next holiday where maybe, just maybe, things would feel normal. Now, I don't circle that hope anymore. I let it go. Sometimes I still hear her voice in my head. The message. The tone. The way she said my name like it was a burden. But it's quieter now. Like background noise in a cafe. There, but ignorable. I don't need revenge. I don't need closure from her. I got something better. Myself. I used to think family was sacred. That no matter what, blood forgave blood. But here's what I've learned. Blood doesn't absolve cruelty. And silence doesn't equal healing. Some people build houses with warmth. Others only pass on the cold. And when you grow up in the cold, you either shiver forever or learn to build a fire. This was mine. My fire. My line in the snow. My proof that even the unlovable can choose love for themselves. So if you're reading this, and you've ever been made to feel like you were a mistake, let me say it plain. You are not the lie someone told about you. You are not what they couldn't handle. Not what they projected. Not what they whispered in moments they thought were private. You are real. You are enough. You are not stillborn. You just haven't stopped growing. And if you found that voice message, what would you do with it? Burn it? Send it? Bury it? Tell me below. I'm listening, even if they never did.